Thank you, welcome everyone. I think I know all of you, but if not, my name is Chitra Karve. I'm Chair of Action for Southern Africa, but my role here is actually as a member of the family and friends who've organised this event. A very small group of us, and I'm very grateful for everyone who put in so much hard work to make sure this has happened, including, of course, the very generous provision of this room by the High Commission, for which I know you're all grateful. We love this building. What I will do is hand over very quickly to Vanessa Naidu-Lewin, who is the Acting High Commissioner, as His Excellency isn't here, to say a few words of welcome on behalf of the South African High Commission.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Firstly, I must apologize for my voice. I picked up a bug from my 3-year-old at nursery, so that's why I sound this way. Ladies and gentlemen, friends and comrades, welcome to the South African High Commission. We apologize that you're here with us under sweltering heat, but thankfully we were all able to be together finally after Comrade George passed away in November last year. My name is Vanessa Naidu-Lewin. I am responsible for political and multilateral affairs at the High Commission. And on behalf of High Commissioner Memorial, he sends his deepest apologies for not being with us this evening due to his official duties in Italy. We are privileged to be able to be the venue for Comrade George Johannes' London Memorial. This is fitting given his role in the United Kingdom and his time serving a democratic and free South Africa as Deputy High Commissioner. I also wish to express our sincere thanks to Comrade Brian Filling for playing a vital role in putting together the special evening. Comrade George passed away in Rome in November last year. His was a life dedicated to service, to the struggle for liberation and the pursuit of truth. In his role as a senior diplomat, he served South Africa, our beloved country, with distinction and dignity. In his role as a diplomat and as a father and as a person, he built bridges, he preached, and he lived the ideals of Ubuntu, which was the driving force behind his life's work. This allowed him to make lasting friendships and touch those who were in awe of his grace and simplicity. As we all know, the struggle for which Comrade George fought is not over. We all know the challenges our beautiful country faces, but there's still much for us to be done to ensure that South Africa reaches its magnificent potential. We thank you, Comrade George, and we thank his family for allowing him to be a true leader and a patriot. God bless you, and I thank you.
Thank you so much. And I think it's a reminder to everyone how much George was loved and recognised for the work that he's done, and I'm very happy to be part of the small team that organised this event today. I'm going to introduce our main speaker, who is Lord Peter Hain. Peter doesn't need much introduction, and in fact if I did a little bio I'd be here all evening. Thank you very much, Peter.
Chitra, thank you, and thank you all for coming this evening and for accommodating me, because I have to get a train to South Wales, and it's lovely to see the family on the front row, Jan and children and grandchildren. I think we should give them a clap, actually, all of them. At the time, the London headquarters of the African National Congress was firebombed by apartheid secret agents in 1982. George was working there. And a list of names of ANC activists in London, created by the South African Security Services, was discovered, said to be of those they wanted to kidnap and or kill in London. George's details are on it. Scotland Yard visited him and Jan at their home to advise on extra security, checking under the car, using different routes each day, that kind of thing. I know what they mean because I was Northern Ireland Secretary and it happened to me. While George had experienced different kinds of threats to his life in South Africa, and when based for the ANC in Zambia or Angola, it was particularly unsettling for him to feel his life was now at risk in London, meant to be a place of safety and refuge of a sort in exile. But that reminds us today of an absolutely crucial point, which I regret is often forgotten or overlooked. Today it's taken for granted that Nelson Mandela walked to freedom in February 1990 after 27 years imprisonment, and 4 years later was elected president of his country and became a global icon. It's taken for granted. Today it's taken for granted that however serious South Africa's problems of poverty and unemployment and homelessness, corruption, power and water cuts and mafia-like crime, and each of these, I regret, are very serious indeed. Every South African citizen has human rights protected by their constitution. But none of that was achieved without a bitter fight against merciless opponents, and George played an important role in that fight. And you'll hear more about it from now. In exile in London, the Apartheid Security Service tried to kill me in June 1972 with one of their specialities, a lethal letter bomb sent to our London address. It would have blown up our family and our home, except for a fault in the trigger mechanism. Other anti-apartheid campaigners were not as fortunate. Ruth First's letter bomb killed her in Maputo in 1982. Abram Tiro's in Botswana in 1974, blowing both of them to smithereens, and many of us will have known and remember Ruth very well from her time in London. If they could have done that to George, they would have. Inside South Africa, activists were jailed, banned, tortured and assassinated. In Britain, we were in a minority. We were criticised and besieged. The British anti-apartheid movement was infiltrated and its headquarters and meetings bugged by a combination of South African security agents and British intelligence. Governments in Britain, the United States and Europe mostly did not support us. Indeed, they armed and profited from apartheid. Only a few years before he became a global icon, British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, remember her, attacked Nelson Mandela as a terrorist. Yet when Madiba came to address both houses of Parliament in 1996, I was present, and I vividly remember Thatcher scuttling down the central aisle in Westminster Hall to take her seat on the front row as a former Prime Minister. History teaches us that big change doesn't normally come from the top. It never did under apartheid. It usually never has anywhere else. But eventually our freedom fight triumphed, and George Johannes was very central to that. I also remember his personal kindness. Meeting on a train to Scotland, where we were both speaking and taking an interest in my young son travelling with me. Ensuring my mother and I got a prime seat at the Wembley concert, addressed by Madiba after his release. And of course, my mother had been at his first trial in the old synagogue in Pretoria, the only white in the White Gallery, saluting him as he did her when he came into the dock. I remember with Jan, travelling to South Wales when I was a local member of Parliament for my wedding 20 years ago, yes, 20 years ago, last June, bringing a personally signed card from Madiba, whom we'd invited to our wedding reception, but not expecting him to come. The card apologised for not attending, and George read out deadpan its typically mischievous Madiba message. But perhaps I'll be able to come next time. George took the trouble a year later to attend my dad's 80th birthday party in Noordhoek on the Cape Peninsula, along with Robben Islander Eddie Daniels and other veteran anti-apartheid comrades that they'd known in the struggle in the early 1960s. And then George came to my ill-fated deputy leader of the Labour Party campaign to the launch of it to give his support. He was not just a good comrade, he was a kind and a decent person too. And of course he would now have been cheering on the Springboks in the Rugby World Cup. I don't think I'll pass the Norman Tebbit cricket test on that one. Speaking of which, I remember that white South Africa's rugby supremo Dani Craven said during our militant protests against the all-white Springbok tour to Britain of 1969-70, and I quote, "There will be a black Springbok over my dead body." Well, there was. Captain Siya Kolisi lifting the World Cup in 2019, vindicating our struggle on the sports fields. But Kolisi's triumphant multiracial team, starring black players from poverty-stricken townships united with white farmers, was only at the World Cup because of the sacrifices and values of hundreds of thousands of anti-apartheid freedom warriors, amongst whom George was one of the very best. We salute his memory. Hamba Kakle, old comrade. We pledge to continue your struggle for liberty, justice and equality. Viva George Johannes! Viva! Viva! Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Peter. And can I just say a very warm thank you to Peter for continuing the work that we all started with George all those years ago. He hasn't stopped. And those of us who keep in touch with his amazing work on anti-corruption, I'm sure you'll all know some of it at least, will know that he's still in the thick of it, and I know will continue for many more years to come. Thank you, Peter. Just moving on, something that I should have said before. This is what happens when you get somebody who shouldn't be in chair chairing. Apologies. Is I've been wanting to say that apart from warm greetings to everyone here, warm greetings to everyone who couldn't attend, and there are a lot of people who were unable to attend. In particular, George's wife Banu, Johannes, and son Liam, they're in Munich, the family in South Africa, and George's son Joe and Joe's mother Debbie. They have sent their best wishes for this event, and they'll be watching the recording, which I think DJ you're responsible for. Thank you. As I said, this event has been organised by a very small band of us, and I'm going to read out who they are, because I think it's important that we do know who's been involved with this. So it's been led basically by Brian Filling and Jan Clements. Also involved has been John Hughes, Amin Mawani, Nad Pillay, and myself. So a very small group of people who came together just to make sure that we recognise Can I invite now comments from the family itself, and I think that's DJ. Do come up. Thank you.
We've never been to South Africa House without Dad. We remember stories and reflect on memories of this building, of how he once urinated on this building during an anti-apartheid protest. Years later, he ended up working inside as Deputy High Commissioner once apartheid ended, and we met Nelson Mandela together here. The day Mandela was voted in, we toy-toyed outside in Trafalgar Square, jubilant that apartheid was over, thanks to the years of political campaign and dedication. George was definitely self-reliant. He had to be as a survival mechanism for bearing the traumas of apartheid. He said he always felt in exile, and in some ways he was in exile from us. We wish he could have let us in more, and it is this sadness that compounds the loss of him now. Whilst there were difficulties in our relationship, he was fundamental person in our childhood. He was always making us laugh and being silly in his nuanced way. He loved food and cooked us wonderful meals. South Africa was always present in our home. He taught us the principles of anti-racism, how we must stand up for justice when faced with injustice. He led by the example that with dedication and fight, you can achieve above and beyond the expectations of oppressive beginnings. So now I'd like to read from Abdullah Ibrahim, when he was still Dollar Brand, a poem about exile. Where loneliness is still waters meet nostalgia, and morning breaks the city sun and smoke, and towering grey the buildings murmur, grim subway rumblings in their roots. I scan the vacant faces and sad smiles and long for home. The night my soul had heroned read through raucous songs of childhood, and friends in comic stories long forgotten were whisked out of memories dim to function as narcotic, and silence cruel reality as it screamed, it's neither here nor there. I'm hemisphered, with three, the Southern Cross, the Libran scale, and God knows, he knows where.
DJ, thank you so much. These are always moving events, but they're also celebratory. So what we're doing here is we're celebrating the life of someone who we knew and loved and who inspired us all. What we're now doing is we're going to sing the national anthem, which is waiting for the singers to come back, following which we will be able to replenish our drinks, and I can say hello to all of you, because I don't think I've been able to do that yet. Thank you. The choir, please come. Thank you very much.